Wait, but how is the first quarter of the year already over? Hello, welcome back to A D in the Life. My name is Adi. I love books, I love life, I love cozy vibes, and most of all, I love to yap. In today's video, we're going to talk about the 11 books I read in March, plus the 2 books I DNF'd, which I have not DNF'd a book since I think more than a year ago, so this is very serious. We're going to do the same format as last time. We're going to go through them in the order that I read them throughout the month, and then along the way, rank them from worst to best or least favorite to favorite. Because I didn't finish the 2 books I DNF'd, we'll get to those at the end. So let's start with the first books that I finished in March, which were The Amendment and The Atonement. And we're going to talk about these at the same time because truly this entire trilogy could have just been one book. So this is part of the Arrangement trilogy. First book is The Arrangement. Second book is The Amendment. Third book is The Atonement. In the first book, this married couple is going through a rough patch, so they decide to open up their marriage. Shit ensues, more shit than you could ever dream of. Book 1, if I remember correctly, had a pretty wacko ending, but I also finished that book feeling like I was good. I didn't need to read more. I gave that one 4 stars. It was fast-paced, short, I think under 250 pages. And then I picked the series back up because of my book series roulette, and I read The Amendment. That one ended on a crazy cliffhanger that I immediately had to pick up The Atonement. It was fine, period. It wasn't the worst thing ever, but it did start to feel a little bit drawn out. But like I said, the cliffhanger really made me feel like I had to read book 3. So then I picked up book 3, and book 3 I was really like, how fast can I make this audiobook go? I just wanted it to be over. I was happy with the ending, but I really felt like the cat and mouse game was so drawn out. I can't tell you what those books were about because it will obviously ruin the entire thing. If you're looking for a palate cleanser, it's certainly not going to put you into a slump. I don't think it's anything to write home about, but it's not the worst thriller I've ever read. I gave The Amendment 2.5 stars. I gave The Atonement 2.25 stars. And to be honest, they are at the bottom of my rating. So The Atonement goes in spot number 11 and The Amendment goes in spot number 10. All in all, pretty much every other book I read this month was better. Okay, so then I picked up Powerless, which is the 3rd book in the Chestnut Springs series. I haven't picked up this series in a while. This was another book series roulette pickup. I have been under the impression that the series would get better and better over time. I read Flawless. That one was like super fine. I didn't love it. I read Heartless, loved that one. Daddy Cade is Daddy Cade for a reason. Single dad, nanny, age gap situation, ate it up. Now Powerless, I went into it thinking I was gonna hate it because so many people commented on my videos saying it was their least favorite of the series, and because it's friends to lovers, which is one of my least favorite romance tropes, my hopes were very, very low. And that might be why I actually really enjoyed it. Truthfully, I also think I read it at the perfect time of the month because the spice was really doing it for me. I thought it was really well done, didn't feel repetitive. The main male character really transformed into an alternate version of himself, I gotta say. I do think that he got off way too easy. I think that the main female character just kind of like forgave him in 2 seconds, but for being a spicy, fluffy cowboy romance, I had a great time. I gave this one 3.75 stars and it's going in number 7. There are still a lot of books that I read this month that were better, but at this current moment, it is my 2nd favorite in the Chestnut Springs series. Obviously, I have a lot more work to do, but I am kind of glad I read it because now I'm itching to read the next one. The next book I read in March was My Husband's Wife. This was the Everything Shelf Book Club pick for the month, my Fable book club. The link is in my caption if you want to join. We are reading This Book Made Me Think of You in April. I didn't totally know what to expect with this one. Alice Feeney's writing doesn't always work for me. I didn't love her newest release, but what I will say with all of her books is that they're all fast-paced. Usually can't put them down. It's really just about how much I hate the ending. Her last book was a prime example of that. Now this one I could get behind. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I read it pretty much from start to finish in one sitting. I remember I had to film that day and I had to force myself to put it down for 30 minutes so that I could film, and then I immediately sat back down and finished the rest of it. This is about a woman who goes on a run, and when she comes back home, she's locked out of her house. There's another woman there saying that she's her husband's wife and she kind of doesn't know what to do with herself. And then there's another POV that comes in, and then another POV that comes in. It's all set in this town in the English countryside. There's an animal sidekick. There's a million and one twists. Some of them were really predictable. I do think that is Alice Feeney's writing. I feel like she likes to put in a lot of twists to kind of get you distracted from the main twist because I didn't guess it and I was kind of mad at myself, but also impressed because obviously that means the author did a good job. Anyways, fantastic palate cleanser. The audiobook was incredible and it goes in the number 4 slot. So it's in my top 5 for the month, which is very impressive for Miss Alice Feeney. Okay, so at this point in the month, it is still technically winter and I was really just in the creepy vibes. And I picked up The Last Town, which is the third book in the Wayward Pines trilogy. Wayward Pines is a dystopian, thriller, horror, sci-fi trilogy. It's set in a town called Wayward Pines. And in the first book, you meet Ethan, who is there to try to find his fellow FBI agents that went missing. I forget if they're FBI. We're just going to say that they're FBI. It's not really relevant. I cannot tell you anything else about the series. You do absolutely need to read the books in order. They are all right around 300 pages or less. Short, quick reads. I gave every single book at least 4 stars. This was another 4-star. I do think the first book is the best out of the 3, but this had the perfect ending, like exactly how I wanted it to end. Obviously, I can't tell you why. I will say they are all very unhinged. I needed like a deep breather after each book. I could not read them in tandem because it was a lot. But if you love dystopian books and thriller books, these would be a match made in heaven for you. Out of the 11 books, this goes in the number 3 spot. I absolutely loved it. And while I am kind of sad this series is over, I'm also kind of relieved. Okay, so then I had an advanced ebook copy of a book that is getting a lot of hype. Like, people are claiming this book to be the book of the year. I'm here to tell you that I think it might be a little bit overhyped. And that book is Yesteryear. So Yesteryear follows a trad wife influencer who all of a sudden one day wakes up back in the 1800s. This book is bananas. It's also dual timeline. So you get flashbacks into this woman's life growing up and then also her being stuck in the 1800s. There's 2 caveats to this book that I think are very important because it will very much dictate who should read it. One, it feels like one extremely long run-on sentence, and this book is over 400 pages, so it's kind of a lot. It truly felt like I was not breathing the entire time. It made the book unputdownable, but it also made me so anxious. On top of that, the entire book is told through the main character's perspective, and she is probably one of the most unlikable, unhinged characters to ever exist. So you really do have to be okay with reading a book that is centered around an unlikable character. That said, it is one of the most unique books I've ever read. I don't know that there's another book like it out there. I still gave it 3.75 stars. It was a wild ride. I don't think I really enjoyed my time with it, but I do recommend it. I don't know how to explain it. If you've read the book, and by the time this video goes up, the book will already be published, I think you'll know what I mean. It was so much, and it honestly put me into like a little bit of a baby reading slump. As for the rankings, it's going in number 6. I liked it a little bit more than Powerless just because it was a much more unique book, also a debut novel, but my top 5 were just generally books I liked a lot more. Okay, next on the list is a book that I was so terrified by that I refused to buy a physical copy because I really think it will come to life and haunt me in the middle of the night, and that book is We Used to Live Here. I did a little bit of audio and physical reading with this one, and I do recommend the audio because there's some mixed media elements involved, and also because it's creepy, and I feel like creepy books can be really good on audio. So bare bones, because I don't want to spoil anything. You start off with a woman who has just bought a house. She's renovating it with her partner, and this random family shows up at her doorstep and tells them that the patriarch of the family used to live there and he'd love to take a little tour of the house with his kids. That's all you need to know. If you are not good with paranormal, demonic elements in books, I don't know that this one is for you. I had to pause reading this quite a few hours before bed because I was very worried I wouldn't be able to sleep. In fact, the next night when I did finish the book, I had a hard time falling asleep. I am a little bit of a baby when it comes to this kind of stuff, so take with that what you will. If this was an actual movie, there is absolutely no way I'd watch it. Like, no way. I get more scared by scary movies than I do with books. All that said, I freaking loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I could not stop reading it. I think I was hooked from chapter 1. It was so good. I had no idea what was going on. The ending pissed me off, but then I sat on it for a little bit and I was like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. This was also a debut novel, and his new book comes out in April, and I cannot wait to read it. In terms of the ranking, this one actually goes in the number 2 spot. Like I said, loved it. But there was one other book I read this month that I loved even more. Okay, the next book that I picked up is Leather and Lark. And this book I pretty much entirely read through audio. And I think that I don't like these audiobooks. And I think that might be why I don't like these books as much as everyone else does. So this is book 2 in the Ruinous Love trilogy. Book 1 is Butcher and Blackbird. I read that last year. I gave that one 3 stars. I had a couple problems with it. These romances are like serial killer, dark romance books. The first book follows this Irish man who falls in love with like another serial killer, and then the second book follows his brother who does the same thing. essentially. Because they're serial killers, they also get entangled into these like dangerous situations. Somehow the cops are never on them. I don't know how that works. If you've read the Mind F series, it's kind of like that, but I do think I like the Mind F series better than this series. Everyone loves audiobooks. The audiobooks are duet narration. I think I have a problem with the Irish accent in audiobooks. I think I don't really find it to be super sexy. And so then you have all these spicy scenes where I cannot get this voice out of my head. And in this book specifically, the main male character says feckin' probably every other sentence, and I just couldn't deal with it. All that said, I did like this one better than book one. I gave this one 3.75 stars. It was less insta-lovey, it felt less cheesy, it had fake dating, which is one of my favorite romance tropes that did kind of suck me in, and I did find it to be a little less gory, somehow. All that said, I do think generally speaking, the series is not really for me. I will read the third book eventually, but I own the first book and I will probably rehome it after this year. And now in the rankings, this goes in number 8. I definitely liked Powerless a lot more. I thought the spice was honestly better. I'm starting to wonder if I don't really like dark romance. I do think I do, but maybe I just don't really like serial killer romance, guys. I don't know. I feel like I'm having some sort of identity crisis because I really thought I would like the series and we're kind of 0 for 2. They're not bad, but they're just very mediocre for me. Okay, the next book I read was another advanced ebook copy, although this book is now also out, and that was The Name Game. This is my second Beth O'Leary book, and Beth O'Leary is known for writing romances with a twist. You usually get a little frustrated like halfway through the book because you're like, WTF is going on? Do I like these characters or not? You start questioning pretty much everything. And then it all works out. This book is about two people named Charlie who get hired for the same job on a remote farm, and instead of trying to figure out who was supposed to get hired, they end up doing the job together. They have to stay in this little house together. So you have forced proximity, workplace rivals to lovers situation, and it's all told entirely through emails and journal entries, which is a fun little added bonus. In fact, I will say the main female character's writing reminded me of Bridget Jones's Diary. Like I felt like I was watching the movie. There are a lot of serious topics in it too, so it's not just a super fluffy romance, which I really appreciated. And then once a twist finally came, I was like, oh my God. I felt like I should have got it. I didn't. I'm impressed that I didn't. Maybe I was just being dumb. I don't know, but I loved it. I gave this book 4 stars. I just had such a good time with it. It was a little bit super fluffy at the end, a little bit too perfect, but it is a romance at the end of the day, so I don't know. I thought it was very cute. Very well done. This one goes in the number 4 spot. Still not my number 1 read. Okay, so if my memory is correct, we have spots number 1 and 9 left. The next book I read was Winter Garden. I feel like if you know me, you'll probably know where this ends up. This is a historical fiction book that follows 2 sisters who grew up on, I think, this like apple orchard, small town with their parents. They grew up very close to their father, but their mother was always very closed off. She's from Russia, seemingly probably a lot of trauma, but they don't know anything about her because she literally doesn't tell them anything. Some stuff happens. They end up convincing their mother to tell them the full fairy tale, and you can kind of guess that the fairy tale connects to the history of Russia during World War II. Such a beautiful book. I absolutely loved it. I loved the relationship between the sisters. I loved how that developed. I loved learning about World War II Russia. I need more World War II Russia books because I feel like I've only scratched the surface. There are a lot of sad parts to this. The first half was definitely a little bit slower than I would have liked, but the last 30%, amazing. Everything came together. There were a couple surprises. I personally thought the ending was perfect. Truly no notes. It was sad, but it was also probably the happiest ending of most Kristin Hanna books. I was expecting more devastation, honestly. I gave it 4.5 stars purely because of the slower start. I think without that, it might have been a 5-star read. And this one goes in my number 1 spot. This was my absolute favorite of the month, which means that the last book that I finished, The Perfect Divorce, ends up in the number 9 spot. So The Perfect Divorce is a sequel to The Perfect Marriage. I actually kind of hated The Perfect Marriage, but to my knowledge, this was only a 2-book series. It was in my book series roulette video, and I ended up choosing it, so I read it. Come to find out there's supposed to be a 3rd book. I probably won't be continuing this anymore because it just like, what else is there to say in this storyline? So truthfully, I don't really want to tell you the synopsis of these books because book 2 does follow the aftermath of book 1, and if you asked me to summarize what happened in book 1, which I read I think 3 years ago, we would be here probably all day. What I can tell you is that the most unlikable character from book number 1 for me personally is not in book 2, so I like liked book 2 better. I gave it a very, very generous 3 stars. In reality, it's probably closer to 2.5, but in comparison, The Perfect Marriage got 2 stars from me, and that was also generous. I will say in book 1, I actually didn't guess a twist correctly. I did, however, guess it correctly in book 2. Book 2 felt much more predictable. Still very fast-paced, psychological thriller, lots of twists, but I guessed almost every single one of them. And now that I think about it, why did I give it 3 stars? Because it was literally so predictable. You know what? I'm gonna bump it down to 2.5 stars because that's correct. Okay, now that we've gone through my identity crisis and all 11 books that I did finish, let's talk about the 2 that I DNF'd or did not finish. Now, I'm not gonna lie, both of these I am very sad about. The Wager is one of them. It's a nonfiction. It's about a shipwreck, I think in the 1700s. And my biggest problem with this book is that the narration of the story is also written as if it takes place in the 1700s. And it was just, there's a reason why I don't read classics, okay? I just can't deal with that language. It's very, very hard for me to stay focused. And I tried doing the audiobook and I kept having to rewind it because I was only half listening. I got to about 20% and then I kept putting off going back to it. I've decided I'm not going to finish it. I would really like to read more nonfictions, and I know people love this book, and I think the second half of the book is really, really interesting. So I've been told. So maybe I'll pick it back up in the future, but it's not in the cards for right now. And then the second book that I DNF'd, I'm actually even more sad about, and that is Direbound. Direbound is actually on my 26 books for 2026. I thought it was going to be a home run book. People have told me it is Fourth Wing, but with werewolves. I love Fourth Wing. I love werewolves. People are correct. It is a Temu version of Fourth Wing with werewolves. And I say Temu because it wasn't even like it was a copy and paste plot. It was just not a fleshed out enough plot. And also, why is this first book 600 pages? And why is everything about sex? Everything. And it wasn't even necessary for some of the plot. I think in chapter 2 there was a spice scene. Like I was so thrown off by that. I feel like there was a lot of extra detail. I feel like the dialogue was written just kind of poorly. I will say, generally speaking, I don't think it's a bad book. I can see why people enjoyed it. I think the reason why I just had to pause and I got to around 45%, but I think the main reason was because it felt too much like Fourth Wing, but not good enough for me to want to read a plot that similar. I want to spend more time reading books that truly feel like a completely different story. I did eventually get the rundown of the rest of the book from my friend, so there's even less of a chance of me ever picking this up. Yeah, that's kind of it. Impressively enough, we've come to the end of the wrap up for March. If you've stayed till the end, thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments what your favorite book from March was, because I'm still on the hunt for my second 5-star read of the year. And yeah, hope to see you next time.